What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Phone with Friends podcast. I'm your host, Allie. I hope everyone is doing well, staying safe, and hopefully you've been able to do some adventuring in the last week. Joining me in today's episode is Jasmine Gatt, or Jazz. She's the founder of Tour de Jazz and is a self-love empowerment coach as well as a travel coach. And she does so much more than that, which I'm excited to hear about. And I want to thanks for joining me today, Jazz.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited to join you again for season 3. Very excited. So thank you for having me here.
Yes, Jazz is kind enough to be a returning guest to the podcast. She was featured in season 2, episode 8. I highly recommend everyone go check out that episode from season 2 to learn a little bit more about who Jazz is and how she got started as a transformational travel coach and in life coaching. And she also shares some great information on how traveling can help you kind of shift your mindset. So if you're interested in that and interested in learning more about Jazz, definitely head on over to season 2, episode 8. And you've been up to a ton of stuff since we chatted last. I think it's been almost a year probably since you were on the podcast.
Yeah, actually it is. It was probably around October, November last year, I think. And we're sitting in August now. So it's a good 6 to 8 months ago.
It's been a while. And you, like a lot of my amazing guests, when I had you on the first time, the challenge is always trying to keep the conversation within an hour. And so we kind of chatted and thought it'd be fun to do kind of a short series of 4 to 5 episodes. And I think we're going to call them intuition talks, maybe.
Yeah.
And just keep them to, short 30-minute episodes centered around specific self-love and travel topics. And this is our first intuition talk. So if this is your first time to the Phone with Friends podcast, you are in the right spot. We do talk about doing fun things with your friends, but we also like to talk about travel and self-love and self-care. So welcome to Phone with Friends Intuition Talks with Jazz. we hope you enjoy it. So Jazz, like I said, you've been super busy since we last talked. What all, kind of give us the breakdown, what all have you been up to?
Well, as we spoke about earlier with entrepreneurs, you have to wear 1,000 hats really, but it's been more about kind of discovering what people need in this specific time. As we know, we're still facing COVID-19 in COVID-21, and people are kind of in this phase of evolution, and it's been a forced shake-up for people and people to understand that there is more to life, or there is more to what they're doing, and they're just trying to find ways to seek that. So I've been really focusing on working with people on relationship with self and nourishing themselves first. We're so conditioned and we're so trained to always help others before we help ourselves, But if we go, let's talk about travel for a second. If we go back to the basics on the airplane, they always say you need to fit your own oxygen mask first before you fit others. And that's a really good metaphor for us in self-love and stripping away the bullshit of thinking that it's selfish to look after ourselves first. We're looking at the point of filling our own cup first until we're overflowing into filling others. So that's what we've really been focusing on. I work with people on the energetic body and also the emotional body. So doing healings, and I do that via distance. So in this day and age, that's so perfect because a lot of us are still locked down or still have so many restrictions that you can't get that healing. You think you have to go into a room and be with someone to get that, but we focus on distance. So we can do that from anywhere at any time without any restriction and people being really comfy. So knowing that there's still so many options available to people to really participate in this evolution of themselves and evolving and changing and learning and deepening understanding, with all these restrictions still around us, and then the emotional side of clearing out all that shit from our past that we all hold on to so tightly for some reason. We're all emotional hoarders and thinking that, I can't let go of that because it might come up again, or, I might need that lesson somewhere else. So just teaching people to be light and free and open and welcome to other things that are available for them. Because at the moment, everyone's so heavy and everyone's, so full with past stuff that they don't have room to welcome in this new exciting stuff. So, yeah, just focusing on that and showing people that that's the way forward if they so feel drawn, and how does that look for them, because everybody's individual. So, yeah, just the pandemic's been an interesting thing, isn't it? And I know I'm so bloody sick of talking about it. Everybody is, but it's still very much a part of our lives, and just pivoting on that and being like, okay, how is this going to work for us rather than against us?
Yeah, and I cannot wait to get into other intuition talks and kind of pick your brain on some of the things you just mentioned, especially the healing, like over a distance, like energy healing. I think that's something that I'm personally kind of interested in, and I think a lot of other folks would be interested in kind of hearing a bit more about how that works and what it entails. I know I am. It's something I might need.
Well, it's one of those things, even if you don't think you need it, when you have it, you're like, wow, how did I go so long without that?
the emotional hoarding. Check. Me too. Get rid of that.
Yes.
And you're located in Australia. So I know Australia has been amazing about like closing down borders and kind of like quarantining frequently given COVID. But have you been able to do much traveling or get out much in the time since we last spoke?
So I'm quite lucky over where I am. We're on the West Coast, and it's been quite free and easy, which is nice. It's a really big state, not as many people in like a larger area. So less concentrated. It's been quite good. We're reasonably quite free, unlike our friends in the East Coast at the moment who are still locked in their houses. But unfortunately, no, I haven't. And it's so funny. I have this big desire that I just need to get away and do a trip, but it's trying to manage everything, as we know. It is trying to do everything, but that's where I focus and say, okay, well, when can I get away and do those little things? And okay, let's go for a weekend here, or let's go for a day trip there. And I have been doing a few little day trips and things just to fit in, because I feel like I'm just the world's biggest hypocrite if I don't. I tell people, no, it's about prioritization of time and getting out and actually doing it. So I have to live that. I have to walk that talk as well, So, yeah, it's just been doing little day trips and things. I'm going to plan a holiday for early next year for a place within the state that we haven't been before. I haven't been before. And I really would love to get up north. And for me, when I think about those things, I just know it comes back to that intuition. There's a reason why I need to be there. And although I haven't got there in the timing that I thought I would, I know that the timing that I do go will all align, and it will be like, this is why I couldn't go 6 months ago. I had to be here right now. But I'm in the planning stages of retreats and things. So to be able to the work be going on trips, and it's so exciting. Day trips for the moment and seeing some like small regional towns. We still can't travel within our country, so I can't get away to go to other states or anything like that. Oh, we did go to Sydney actually in April and have a little trip there for a few days. But other than that, we've just been doing small local things.
Yeah, that's a nice little a break. A staycation is always a nice way to kind of break up the usual or the normal, I guess. So that sounds quite lovely. I always look at your Instagram and I'm like, oh, Jazz is going to some awesome places. But I think that's near where you live. Like, yeah, it's beautiful. I'm like, oh, you're by the water. Like, it's lovely.
Yes, it's like a buffet of beaches, which is so nice.
I'm just like, oh, that I would like to be there. It just looks so enjoyable.
It is. Soon you can come and join me, hopefully soon.
Yes. If the world opens up.
Yeah.
So on this first intuition talk, we kind of wanted to focus on self-love, kind of in the broader or general sense of the self-love, and kind of give an overview of what it is and, what it means to you and what you do as like a self-love healer and coach. And so, let's get into it. Like, can you give us a little overview of what self-love is and what it means to you?
Yes, absolutely. So self-love, my personal journey to self-love, of course, I'm a Scorpio and I like to learn things the hard way. I don't like to do anything easy, or, if you could tell me something and I'll be like, that's not true. And then I'll have to do it myself and I'll fail many times, or this will happen, that will happen. I'll be like, oh, yeah, see what Ali was saying? I should have just listened to that. So I learned everything the hard way, which is something I've discovered in probably the past 12 months when I've looked back on my life and been like, oh, that's how it's unfolded like that. So I thought that self-love was just like a buzzword, really. Everyone says self-love, love yourself. And I was like, what is it? Why is that important? Like, sure, love yourself, great. But it's just one of those fads. It will go away. Everyone says it. Self-care. I'm busy. I don't have time for self-care. What are you talking about? I'm that person, and then I certified as a travel coach, and I felt like there was an energy healer, and I felt like there was something missing, and I couldn't find what it was. But one day, Instagram ads got me by the throat, as they always do, and I saw the ad for becoming a self-love coach, and I was like, what is that? I clicked on it, and I read through the course criteria, and I was like, this is exactly me. Like, everything in there resonated with me, and I just thought, this is my missing piece. I asked for a sign from the universe. I kept seeing angel numbers. I went and saw a psychic, and I just finished the travel coaching course and everything, so I didn't have anything on the horizon, but they said to me, you're being told to keep studying. Education is coming up for you. And I was like, I need to do this course. Lots of bills were coming up, and I was like, okay, just. And then still, I didn't really know what self-love was, really. And when we got into the course, the first module absolutely kicked my ass. I just went through, understood that I had to go through the process of understanding what it is and doing it and letting go and releasing of all that shit I'd been holding on to, that emotional hoarding, to be able to continue with this work. And I was like, this is why I've been called here and drawn here to this, is because I need to do this work and understand it fully myself to be able to then do the journey and then help others and guide others on their own journey. So I learnt the roadmap to self-love, the 5 steps, is not just about self-care. So everyone thinks self-love is self-care, which is going for a walk when your mind is clouded, taking a bubble bath and having a face mask, having that wine when you feel like you need that wine. And yes, all of that is a part of it. That's all a part of the self-awareness. But the 5 steps realistically are self-forgiveness, self-acceptance, self-gratitude, self-care, which is the part we all know about, and self-trust. And all of those come under a big banner of self-love and understanding self. And basically what it comes down to is self-awareness and nurturing your relationship with self. So really understanding who you are, what's going on for you, what makes you tick, and what you need, and being able to prioritize those things, being able to bring those things up to the forefront, and knowing, as we talked about before with the oxygen mask, you have to serve yourself first. That's going to benefit other people, because when we serve other people without being filled and abundant ourselves, we're really serving from a place of lack. So we're trying to get those things that we're missing from other people unconsciously. We're helping them because underlying our subconscious needs something. So we're not serving from a place of abundance. Whereas if we're already complete and whole ourselves, and we've nurtured ourselves and we've got what we need, and then we serve, we're really serving from a place of love. And it's really, really different. The whole love versus fear thing, which we can go into a little bit later. It's just, how we kind of operate and how we make our decisions based on those kind of things. So for me, when I started understanding this self-love roadmap, and I thought, how am I going to get through all these steps? Well, everything's fine. I've done all my healing work before. I'm quite conscious of, no, girlfriend, was I wrong? So the first step of self-forgiveness and, learning a lot more about journaling and unconscious journaling and just like free writing and letting your pen kind of flow to specific prompted questions. And when I read back what I got, I was like, holy shit, okay. And it broke me. It absolutely broke me to rebuild me again, to really let go of things. I didn't realize how much that I stored personally in my emotional body, but also in my energetic body. You know, our body holds on to things, and it knows when there's been trauma or an injury or a situation that's less desirable. And it like has an anniversary. It will bring it up. And then you won't, if you're not aware, you won't know that these things are happening for you. Just like, I feel like shit, what's going on? But you don't really know. It's just all these things that we haven't released and let go of in our past. So yeah, so I had to go through the journey myself. I understand now that self-love is so much more than self-care. I put it down to, like I said, the relationship with self and putting that on the forefront. And I like to ask people a lot of the time, if you put down like the characteristics of your relationship with self, you know, you do a pros and cons list or whatever it might be, and if you were looking at that list as an objective, looking at it objectively, and that was your relationship with somebody else, your romantic partner, would you stay with them or would you break up with them? So because you accept so much for yourself that's not okay, but you wouldn't accept that if someone told you, like if your friend said to you, I'm dating this person and, you know, this is happening, you'd be like, get rid of them. What are you doing? You know? But we're not willing to look at our relationship with ourselves that objectively because we're so fearful of what's going to come up. But it's about knowing that we're the ones bringing it up when we're taking control back by doing that. We're the ones saying, I'm here to evolve and grow, and I need to know what's not serving me anymore to let go because I want to be light and free to move forward and welcome in beautiful things, not heavy and have no space for all these things to come in. So you're taking that power by saying, I'm here and showing up for this journey and I can face whatever comes up for me, rather than fearing and being like, oh no, I am not willing to look back at my past, or I'm not willing to look at my relationship with self. It's not good. It doesn't look good, you know, and fear running away from that and just kind of holding it. So it's about being vulnerable and open, but for the benefit of yourself and ultimately the people around you as well.
Yeah, I'm glad that you kind of clarified the difference between self-love and self-care, because in my mind, literally until you just said what the difference was, they were the same thing to me.
Yes.
Like when someone, I was a guest on someone else's podcast, and they asked me what like self-care and self-love was to me. And I said a lot of the things that you said, like just what self-care is, like taking a walk or like taking some quiet time, or, you know, like taking a moment just to like check in with myself. And yeah, to me, I guess that's what self-love is. But hearing you define it in like 5 steps, I was like, oh shit, that makes sense. There is a difference between self-love and self-care. And also the relationship with yourself, the pros and cons list. I don't even know if I could put one together for myself. Because as soon as you said that, I was like, oh, how would I describe myself, my relationship with myself? Like you got to dig deep to like really get into that, I feel like.
Yeah, that's the thing. It is about that, exactly, digging deep, because we can dig, you know, a couple of years past, but that's not really what we're driven by. We're driven by that childhood stuff as well, and the teenage stuff, all that stuff. And people say, you know, emotional trauma release and things like that. How do you define trauma? You know, trauma is different for everybody. So if you look at something traumatic, what's traumatic for you and what's traumatic for me is very different. So sometimes a lot of people don't recognize their trauma, and trauma is an emotional thing, something that's caused distress to somebody in an extreme way, but also just causing distress realistically. So we don't know how much we have that we're storing and holding on to that's really impacted us, because we'd be like, oh, that was nothing. But to us in our emotional body, it is something, you know, so we have to recognize that and realize that the root cause of a lot of different things and why things come up for us. And we often will find that until we find the root cause to the thing that's happening to us, it will come back in a different way, wearing a different costume and wearing a different hat. Same problem. Keep coming up and up and up, and just slightly varied and slightly changed until we can really face it. Going back to the relationship with self, like you mentioned, if I say to a stranger, you know, like, how do you rate your relationship with self? That's quite an intimidating question. And if alone, they would probably be like, if they were with me, they'd be like, good, yeah, great. Relationship 10 out of 10, baby. But if they have that question to them, because it's the chauvinistic thing, it's ego talking. But if you strip that down when you're alone and no one's around and will know your answer, they'll probably be like, yeah, not very good. I have negative self-talk. You don't treat my body right. I don't nourish myself. I don't, these kind of things. But it's not looking at them in. Often people will get stuck in the spiral of, okay, do that exercise of looking at yourself objectively, and then they'll be like, fuck, I'm awful. Like, this is no good. Get into the negative self-talk. But it's like, no, we're looking at this and we're seeing our opportunities. We've got tangible things now to work with. We've got this thing to be like, great, okay, we can see what we're really looking at. So let's start moving forward. Let's start working and building on that relationship. Let's work with self-trust. Let's help raise that self-awareness, which really is the first step, self-awareness. We can't work on things if we don't know that they're going on. So we look at it as an opportunity and being like, great, we've taken the first step. We're moving forward now. We've identified these things. This is a beautiful opportunity, rather than, oh, no, there's so much work to do and this is no good. How have I lived with myself like this for so long, and how have I gotten this out of hand? It's about taking that away. We're not loathing in this process. We're looking at everything in the eyes of love.
Do you know what goes great with listening to podcasts? If you said a warm drink, you're absolutely right. Just imagine you're sitting back, you're listening to your favorite podcast, all while holding a nice, cute-ass mug in your hand with your favorite hot beverage in it. If you're wondering, where can I get a mug like that? Well, you're in luck. You can swing by the Coots Creations Cute Coffee and Tea Mugs Etsy shop. They've got everything from enamel coffee cups to travel mugs, all featuring adorable original artwork. Head over to etsy.com/shop/Coots Creations and use promo code WANDER for 10% off any mug.
So I will just quickly overview with you, which is something I work with a lot. It's love versus fear, and this is how we do make a lot of decisions. So every situation and thing that comes up in our life, instinctually, primarily, we will act out of love or fear. So we will either lean into it or we will run away from it. So looking at love versus fear thing. So if we're looking at our relationship with self, or objectively, like we just talked about, often we will fear that and we won't want to lean into it because it's scary. It looks like hard work. It looks quite unmanageable perhaps, rather than looking at it with the eyes of love, being like, great, we're moving forward. We have beautiful opportunities. We're only going in one direction, and that's moving forward. So when we look at things, are we looking at a fear-based mentality, or are we looking at it in an opportunistic way? We look love versus fear, and it's about starting to train people on how to recognize different situations and what you instinctually choose, and trying to primarily choose love when you can, looking at bad situations or situations that are not desirable to you and being like, that was awful. Why did that happen to me? And say, okay, why has this happened for me, and what can I learn from it? Sometimes it doesn't happen in the moment because we're emotional, but it's about knowing that we can always have the opportunity to choose again. And I learned that from Gabrielle Bernstein, a wonderful author that I love. And she says the choose again method, and knowing that if you instinctually choose fear first, you always have the opportunity to choose again. It's not like a final kind of thing. A day later when you're reflecting, you'll be like, okay, I'm going to see this differently now. Now I'm going to lean into love. I'm ready. I'm not as emotional. I'm ready now to lean into love and move forward in the eyes of love. So knowing sometimes we'd be like, oh, we fucked up. That's it. It's done. But it's not. We can always move forward. We can always learn something else. We can always reframe. So knowing that it doesn't have to be final, and the situation might be over, but what we can learn from it, what we can grow, how we can grow, and how we can move forward, we still have opportunities for that.
No, I love that. Like love versus fear is definitely, God, I'm thinking back. I think it was probably like in the very first episode actually of this podcast, I mentioned how all of my decisions kind of up to a certain point in my 30s, really when I started the podcast, were fear-based decisions. Like I was making all of my life choices purely out of fear. And so being able to kind of reflect on it, like you said, and say, okay, like I made these decisions based on fear, but going forward, like I've learned from this. Now, how can I make these similar decisions or encounter similar situations? Like, how can I approach it from a place of love rather than fear, or like advance? I don't know. I'm trying to put it into words, but I'm not doing very well.
No, but it's exactly right. Knowing that's a perfect example of we're looking back at the past, and exactly the situation is over. You know, we can't go back and reopen it and react and be like, okay, this is Ali 5 years ago, I'm going to do this. You know, it's the situation has ended, but we can reframe it and use that and put that down as experience. And now our moving forward, we have experience of how we want to move, what we want to not recreate. You know, we're not. We're aware that we were acting out of fear, and now we're choosing that we don't act out of fear. We're acting out of love here. We're not acting out of ego. We're not scared. We're not afraid. We are open and vulnerable, and we are ready to see what we need to learn and accept, even if it takes us more time than we'd hoped, or, you know, it's a different kind of journey. We're ready for that. We're here. We're taking our power back and saying, yes, we're here to do it. So we're going to move into it. We're going to lean into it with love instead of running away from it with fear. And those situations, we can still learn from them so much later, because you've got an experience to look at and see how it kind of turned out by acting out of fear. And you can use that as like an example to move forward. And now you're going to act out of love, even though you still have that situation in the past.
Yeah. Learn from your mistakes.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's where it kind of comes from, isn't it? Because a lot of the time we will just shut off to that. We're not open to reopening that wound or re-looking at it or experiencing those experiences because we didn't like them. So when we stand in our power and say, okay, I'm ready for this to come back up again and see what I need to learn, and I'm open to learning, wow, that's powerful. Like a lot of people need a lot of work before they're able to do that, because they will just see that in fear and say, no, I'm not willing to experience that again. I don't want those feelings to come up again. I don't want to see what's going to happen if I have to think about that again. And that's fear. So that's us being closed and scared, and we're looking around every corner being like, is this going to come up again? Rather than saying, okay, here we are, I'm ready, let's go. I'm looking at this objectively and I'm ready to learn. It's going to hit you in a whole different way, isn't it? Just and having that power in you saying, no, I'm ready, okay? I'm not emotional anymore. We can do it. Let's go.
So when you coach someone, either like self-love or, I guess when you do self-love coaching, is one of your goals to kind of help guide them through that process of looking back on things that have caused them fear, or, you know, maybe they're holding on to that emotional hoarding, and kind of walk them through how to process it and get to a point of love? Is that kind of what you go into your coaching kind of hoping for?
Yes, absolutely. And you've hit the nail on the head. It's about looking back sometimes to be able to move forward. And we do, like, I have a little pre-session form, and we have a little call before to kind of see what people already know what they want to work on, but they don't know how we've got to that point. And that's the thing. It's about being aware of understanding those past situations and looking at them objectively, like you said, and looking at them in the way of being like, okay, what emotionally was going on for you around that kind of time? You were acting out of fear. So what emotions were coming up for you? And learning that, knowing and accepting that we only ever do our best with the tools and knowledge of how to use them at that time. So forgiving ourselves for, holding on to these years of being like, I should have done better, or I shouldn't have made that decision, because you are only doing your best at that time. But we're looking at it objectively. And a lot of it usually does end up coming back to childhood in relationship with parents. And some clients will have this mentality that they need to perform because their parents were so strict on them and things like that. And that's carried through to their adult life. So understanding the boundaries and things around that of setting now, and knowing that, again, you can only do your best with what you've got at the time. You still have those tools, but now you may know how to use them better. But that didn't affect you back then, so why beat yourself up about that? So I work a lot with clients about things like that. You're exactly right. And understanding what was going on for them at the time, how they were acting in fear, like how does that look? Do you now have that mentality of being able to, you always want to impress because you didn't impress your mum in that situation. So now, and that caused a lot of shame for you, and a lot of things came up around that because you felt like you didn't have your mum's trust because you didn't perform, if that's a family culture that does come up in different cultures. So breaking that down and looking at that and being like, okay, we've created a life now where we're trying to people please and we're on the back burner, that we are trying to show achievements rather than build meaningful relationships and things like that. That could be an example of what was happening there and how we move forward in that, breaking it down and having weekly calls of situations that were happening in the week. I always give homework and things to work around during the week and tools to use if that kind of feeling. So we learn how to identify that as the first thing, because again, how do we know what we're working on if we don't know what we're working on? So learning on being aware and identifying these past emotional blocks that are coming up for you, and that's a block. Okay, I need to work on, I have an exercise around this, and then we go through that exercise together. So whether it's a self-forgiveness exercise or a self-acceptance exercise specific to that thing that's coming up, and then we learn to work on it. We go through it one-to-one, and then it's usually the guiding of the person just trying to break those habits and just trying to fall out of that pattern and move forward from that and say, I'm no longer accepting these patterns to be true for me. I'm breaking this cycle. I'm not willing to show up for this anymore, and giving them the tools to understand that that's what's happening, being aware of that happening, process it. We go through it together and then guiding them forward. So we're looking at a lifetime worth of conditioning here. It's not one session, and people's progress is absolutely phenomenal in the awareness of what's happening for them. And you start to see they reframe things, and we work a lot with language as well and reframing things. And language is so important, linguistics, because how we talk to ourselves, how we talk about ourselves is so important. And if I'm with a client and they're reflecting on a situation that's happened for the weekend, they start talking negatively, by a few sessions later, they won't do that anymore, because you pull them up and you say, hey, just remember, you were only doing your best and you were emotional at the time. And now we can see ABC because the situation's passed. So how are we choosing love to move forward in this now? And then they will start to reframe themselves naturally. You will see that they will have a few heavy words that they only use about themselves. And then as we go along, they will start to use more descriptive words. You'll find people will use like, I hate that about myself, or I failed, or I did this. But really, what do you hate? You haven't broken it down. So what is actually going on for you? Let's use some more descriptive language, and let's really describe what's going on for you in this to really see what's happening, because you're just using a blanket word and you're ignoring the emotion. You're not actually allowing it to come up to see what's really going on for you. It's just, you've got a quick fix word and be like, I'm labeling it that. Okay, I felt that. Now I feel bad because I felt hate. Now I feel bad. This is awful. But it's like, well, okay, but what was it? Was it fear? Was it shame? Was it emotion? What was it? Let's look into it, and then we can start to work on it from there. So it's a process, and using language as well, of reframing things, of speaking more positively, of learning lessons rather, things like that. So, it's a process, and it's interesting. And sometimes you wouldn't think of the things that come up in self-love coaching to be what they are. But when we're looking at self-forgiveness as a step to self-love, there's a whole ballpark of things that come up. People think, I don't need a self-love coach. I love myself. That was me, guys. I'm telling you right now, I was that person. Right now, I benefited from one, because I understood my past. I understood my past traumas. I understood that I thought I had done work around them, but I hadn't. I hadn't forgiven myself from these things. I hadn't accepted that these things happened to me. And I learned that. And now I can move forward in how can my experience, so many times we think, how can I love myself when so many bad things have happened to me? And that's a big one for people. So especially if you're stuck in this mindset, this negative loop that plays over and over and over again. So it's about breaking that down and understanding the root cause of these things, starting to heal that, giving you the tools to know how to be aware about it and manage it, and moving forward.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned language, because that is what words we use to describe certain things, because that was one of the things. I'm still working on it. I always will be, but I'm a shoulder. Like I should have done that. I should have done this. I should have done it that way. I should have said this, like always. And like I said, I'm still working on it. But when I started to get rid of the shoulds, it made a big difference. Like instead of saying, oh, I should be getting up at 8 a.m. and I should be working on this, it's like, okay, I can get up at 8 a.m. if I want to. And I can, or I get to work on this because it's what I enjoy doing. And so kind of like, I'm still working on it, still getting there, but it has made a difference. I'd say probably in like the last 6 months, I've really made a hard effort to change just that one word that I use to describe what I am doing or should be doing.
Yeah, I understand that. And the 8 a.m. thing is such a good example, because people say morning routine is how you are successful. If you don't have a morning routine, you're a failure. And that's true for some people. But Ali, I know you're not a morning person. So morning doesn't you. It's about looking at your schedule. It's about time blocking. And I work with people on this as well, because they don't understand. And we talked about it earlier. I was this person again. Where do you fit self-love in when you're so bloody busy? Like, and really, when you have a busy schedule, sometimes how do you do it? But it's about time blocking, and it's about priorities, about understanding exactly what you said about, I'm doing this because it makes me feel good. So that's important. You know, I'm not going for a run because I ate a cookie and my butt's going to grow. I'm going for a run because it releases endorphins and it makes me feel good. So reprogramming and reframing that as well. But, you know, you not as a morning person getting up at 8 a.m. doesn't serve you at all. So you look at your day, I work with clients as well and saying, okay, how many hours sleep do you need to function well in the past? How many hours sleep do you need? They say 7.5, 8 hours sleep. So, okay, great. We've got 24 hours to work with here. And if you're a night owl and that's your productivity time, great. We just need to schedule your day around that and when you are productive. If you're a morning person, getting up at 5 a.m. and getting straight into it will work for you. But if you're not and you force that, that's going to throw out your whole clock, your whole body clock. So it's about recognizing that too. You probably felt guilty because you don't like waking up at 8 o'clock. Throw that out the window. That's a fit-based mindset. It's like, okay, what does work for me? Let's lean into love here and see what works for me, how I will perform. I'm not like everybody else and everybody else is not like me. So I need a personalized routine.
Yes, exactly. I'm on board with all of that. I'm like, Jazz, you're speaking my language, man. I'm like, I'm on board.
Or I better action that, or I've been meaning to do that, and I have to do it now. This is my sign to step forward.
I'm one of those people. Like it's insane. I will be like, oh, again, the shoulds, right? I'll be like, I should be doing that, or that's something that I've been wanting to do for a while, but I've been putting it off. And really what I just need like someone else to just be like, yeah, you should do that. Like, what are you waiting for? It's, I don't know why I'm like this, but
you just need somebody like, okay, you've got this big goal. Let's break it down into small steps and let's take that small step now. Because it's a lot of the time the shoulds, they seem too hard and too complicated. And how do you actually get it done? How do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? You know, so have that. And I do that with clients as well. Have that big goal and let's break it down into smaller steps, into that malleable step that you can take today, knowing that you've moved forward. And, you know, you're going to take those steps every week or every day, whatever it might be. And you'll look back and be like, well, actually, I'm closer to the goal than I am further away because I've broken it down. That's how many things so fizzle out, because you have this big goal and you think, how am I ever going to do that? Where am I going to fit that in? What do I need? Oh, how? But it's like, okay, what's in my control now? What do I need to do? What can I do today to get closer? I'm going to do it. Let's do it.
I'm on board. I'm in. So if, let's say someone is looking to kind of get more like tapped in to self-love or to start practicing self-love more, like the 5 steps that you mentioned earlier. But, you know, maybe they can't go to a self-love coach. Like, do you have, you know, like any advice or maybe like a recommendation for how they can kind of start that process on their own?
Yeah, great question. So it's all about self-awareness, I believe, and kind of seeing what comes up for you. I believe heavily in journaling, and just you can Google like journaling prompts for, and then whatever you're trying to achieve or whatever, or self-love or whatever it is. Or, if you resonate with one of those 5 steps and you think, well, I don't really accept myself, or I don't accept this situation, or self-gratitude, like, well, I don't know how to be thankful for myself because I'm not so happy. So you could start with one of those processes and just Google journaling prompts around that. I have no doubt that things will come up. Write them all down and then just free write. See what comes up for you, and that will give you a really good indication of what's going on. Practice your energetic hygiene, try and meditate. Meditation for some people is really tricky. For me, I struggle for a long time. So I break it down into really small steps, and be like, okay, 5 minutes. And I'm putting that 5 minutes down as a purposeful 5 minutes for me to allow myself to be silent and still. And if any guidance comes through, that's beautiful. If not, I've prioritized myself and my needs today, and that makes me feel good. So like a 5-minute chunk. And if you do that consistently, that will kind of build up. Or whether it is go for the walk, and listen to the podcast you've been meaning to listen to, or listen to like a frequency based thing on YouTube. So Solfrago frequencies, they are healing frequencies. So they heal on like an energetic level or a physical level, and just say that you're doing that. Or look up on Spotify or wherever you listen for affirmations. And there's so many things about affirmations that can help you. And just say to yourself, I'm going for a 30-minute walk now and I'm going to listen to my affirmations. And that's going to be really powerful for you as well. So it's all about not forcing yourself into something because everyone says it's what you need to do. Like we talked about, getting up at 8 a.m. doesn't work for you. So what resonates with you? Do a little bit of research. If journaling doesn't resonate with you, don't start with it, because you're going to force yourself into it and it's not going to be authentic. If the self-care aspect of self-love really resonates with you, and it's something that maybe you're not prioritizing enough for yourself yet, you think I should do a little bit more of that, then work on that. Break up a small bit, whether it's 15 minutes of something for you that day, reading your favorite book, going for a walk, doing a face mask, something, doing some exercise, whatever it is, and just prioritizing a small chunk. And then work on consistency. So whatever feels good for you when you're doing your research and think, I would like to do a little bit more of that, make it happen in a way that's good for you. If you say I need to carve out an hour of my day for self-care, I can tell you it won't last more than a week. Because if you're already busy, how do you fit in that hour?
Yeah.
It's reframing that language of doing these things because I enjoy them and they make me feel good. And I'm prioritizing them in my schedule. So if you do 10 minutes a day for a week, or 4 times a week you do 10 minutes a day, you will start to feel the benefits, and you will want to make that 15 to 20 minutes next week. So it's a process, it's not about like rescheduling your whole day in one day and sticking to it, because it just doesn't work. We're not programmed like that. It's about small steps, the small bites, and making sure you're doing it because it makes you feel good and you enjoy it, not because you have to, because someone told you to, because it's what everybody does. It's about you and what feels good for you.
Oh, yeah, could not agree with you more. But as a shooter,
it's just about finding the tools that work for you.
Yes, words to live by. Jazz, thanks so much for joining me. And this is the first of our Intuition Talks series. So I'm so freaking excited to have you back on for future episodes. But before we wrap up, what are you working on and where can people find you?
So, well, at the moment, I'm working on myself, always constant effort of self, but also, working on guiding people through that process. Lots of exciting things coming up. I am excited. I'm full body committing to the craft. But they can find me Tour de Jazz on Instagram. And I'm happy to answer any questions, even if you mentioned before, like self-love coaching isn't in our field at the moment, but what can I start with? Let's have a chat. I'm happy to help.
Amazing. And again, I can't thank you enough. Like Jazz says, if you have questions for her, you can reach out to her on her Instagram. You can also send us a message or leave us a voicemail on our hotline. It's 252-419-6004. And we'll cover those on a future Intuition Talks episode. And Jazz will be back on the podcast for another episode of Intuition Talk soon. So thanks so much, Jazz.
Yay, thank you so much.
And listeners, don't forget, get out there, try something new, and have some fucking fun. Bye.
There you have it. Thanks, as always, for listening to this week's episode. Be sure to tune in for the next one. And if you are looking for some entertainment or you're bored, I highly recommend going back and listening to some of our previous episodes. You can follow the Fun with Friends podcast on Instagram at Fun with Friends Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at FunFriendsPod1. We are also on Facebook. You can listen to the podcast on Anchor FM, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. As always, please like, rate, and review, and be sure to tell your friends about the podcast and get the word out there about it. And as always, my friends, go out there, try something new, and have some fucking fun. Bye!